And we're back. Okay. The joys of being a dog owner. So here he can go ahead and start building his fourth Banshee, and he's going to do that. Come on, you can do it. At some point, start building this Banshee. Building a Marine. Building an SCV. Build a Banshee! Come on! So another thing he could be doing with this SCV just sitting here is go ahead and build an armory, and that would allow him to research an attack upgrade for his Banshees, which would be great. There he goes. So he's going to be getting these Banshees out, and we'll take a look at the clock when they come out, and we're going to see something kind of interesting. So he's going to go ahead and move out with 3 instead of 4, but really it's 4. You know, we'll just assume that 4 was the number he was looking for. So he's got these 3 at 10 minutes. Now, if you look at the map, we can see that CmdrTallon has not been doing any scouting. So this is a pretty big map. So he doesn't know where his opponent is, whether they're close by air, which would be the close by air position, which would be great over here in the 3 o'clock position, or whether they're all the way across the map down here in the 6 o'clock position, or pretty close over here at the 9 o'clock position. So at this point, since he hasn't done any scouting, it's kind of a 50-50 shot, whether it's going to be close or far. And at 10 minutes, and these Banshees aren't super fast, you're going to see the price and time that he will pay by not scouting. So that's, I'd probably say with this particular game, that was the biggest thing I would say that he could improve on is scouting. And part of that is because the strength of this surprise attack is that timing. The more time that his opponent has to build up a defense or to build up money, in this case, you know, in particular, in this case, you can see his opponent has a lot of money. But you know, these Banshees are taking off at about 10:30, and they're going to make this slow move around the map. Now, if he had known where his opponent was, this is kind of an interesting aspect. So he's moving these Banshees around the map, these 3, and then this 4th one is going to join up here. So these 4. Now, because he doesn't know where his opponent's base is, he's going to have to be very careful with these Banshees, because even though they can turn on cloak, there is a possibility that he's going to accidentally run into his opponent's base. There's going to be a bunch of sport crawlers, and they're just going to get shot down. So he's going to have to keep going back and forth between controlling these 4 Banshees around the entire map, looking for his opponent. He's picking the crosswise position. When if he would have scouted, he could have hit them. Actually, this opponent is much closer. He could have hit him at a minute ago, and these Banshees are hanging out. So you can see there's a price between having these guys, having to micromanage these Banshees around the map just to make sure that he doesn't lose his investment. And you can see back at the base, because he's micromanaging them, he's not continuing to keep his barracks busy. He's doing a pretty good job of getting Banshees, but whoa, look at this. So he's got 2 more Banshees in the queue, which, and this Banshee first started, so that's a lot of minerals, a lot of gas he could be spending somewhere else. And if you look up here on his resource tab, he's got almost 500 minerals. So here's another step of just further refinement upon this build, which is actually, seems to be going pretty well. Is that after this attack, you do want to have a plan, a plan of where to go next. You have to be ready, unless you're just going to do an all-in off of one base with everything you've got all at once. You want to have a plan just in case this doesn't work. And in this case, he does have a contingency. He's got these Marines and this Marauder behind this wall, but he can go ahead and start building a second base. So as soon as he gets to that 400, he can go ahead and start building another command center. But at a minimum, he should go ahead and just continue to make units, and you can see he's starting to do that, starting to build a Marauder, making use of some of that extra money. And he's about to be supply capped here, 75, so we can go ahead and start building a supply depot. So a lot of this is just managing your units and making sure they're busy. Let's go back to Talon's view Looks like all of his SCVs are busy. That's good. And he's got 3 on gas here and 2 on gas here. So he could add another SCV to this gas. And you can see that he's using up his gas pretty well. So that's all pretty good, fine and dandy. And these Banshees are going to make their way around the map. So we'll see what time they eventually hit this base, because that's the price that he's paying right now for not scouting, is the time it takes for these 4 Banshees. He made these Banshees back at 10 minutes and 30 seconds, so he's had them now for almost 2 minutes, and they haven't paid off yet. In fact, in those 2 minutes, he's built even more Banshees. So, you know, that's something to consider here, is that, you know, if we rewind the clock back, you know, and they're still making their way all the way around, and you know, he's having to watch them, micromanage them. He's getting supply blocked. There's the supply blocked. So, and he's building these turrets, you know, expecting maybe some Mutalisk harass or something like that. But I mean, honestly, if he was worried about Mutalisk, he needs to be pumping out Marines. And there's some other things he can do for that. So right now, these Banshees have finally found that base. So if we look at the clock, those Banshees have been in the air for almost 2.5 minutes. So he could have hit this base or this base over here about 2.5 minutes ago, and followed up with another round of 4 at this point. And yeah, or this 5. This one's about to come out here. So, you know, in general, I really think that probably the one thing that he could do to improve this build would be scouting, because, you know, he's hitting the time perfectly. The Banshees have cloak, they're ready to go. Had he scouted, they would have saved 2.5 minutes, and these Banshees could have killed a whole lot of drones in that time. In general, I would say scouting is probably the one thing to improve here, and it's something pretty easy to do. You just got to send out an SCV and go look for the opponent's base. You know, of course, when you're microing things, he could always be building things while he's out. You know, right now his focus is over here on these 4 Banshees just doing their job. But through the use of hotkeys, he could have these barracks or these 2 starports on a hotkey and be building. At this point in the game, it really doesn't matter. So he's just focusing on winning the game at this point, which is good. But you know, and here he goes building some supply depots to get unsupply blocked. But you know, it's I don't know. It's just a pretty good game, and he won the game, did very well for his first game in Season 3. And yeah, I think the main thing here is scouting, keeping things busy all the time, like these barracks and this command center. And, you know, go ahead and have a plan for what's the next step. You know, after these Banshees hit, I mean, he had a plan to build a lot more Banshees here, so that's just great. But, you know, he could have built several command centers by now, which, you know, in the context of this game, he's right now just, you know, cleaning up these bases. For some reason, Zerg decided not to attack with everything they had, which, you know, could have forced him to come back home. But he's got a pretty good force here. So I think overall, in this particular matchup against Zerg at this level, you know, this build was fine. But I think, you know, if anything, if he comes into the match knowing what he's going to do, and, you know, for all I know, a lot of this was just done on the fly here, going for these Banshees. But you can see what the difference would be if he came into the game planning to build these starports, planning that 4 Banshee attack. Not only could have he scouted and then hit with the Banshees several minutes earlier, but even just some slight tweaks to when he built his buildings. Right now he has 3 tech labs. He has basically not used this tech lab at all. He could have, you know, really sped that up to get those sooner. And once he's, you know, built up to that point to get those 4 Banshees, you can tell he's just got the resources flowing in to do some other things. And that, I think, would probably be the other pointer besides scouting, would be to, so the first one is to have a plan when you go in, and the second one is to scout, especially for this plan where it depends on him surprising his opponent as soon as possible. And the third one would be to have a plan for what to do next. This is something that I have a hard time with in my games. Is I'll focus on this, original plan. What am I going to do in the first 10 minutes? And then after that, I'm at a loss at what to do next. And so in his case, I mean, I think he's got, he's got some pretty good macro skills building up here and building SCVs. He kept building these SCVs at a pretty good clip. If we look at the supply station, he's up to 24 workers, so he could be keeping that up, and he did get supply block there. But, I mean, again, you kind of got to look at the game in context. At this point, he knows that he's winning. He knows that actually these 4 Banshees were enough to really throw his opponent off. So, and that's an interesting point. He could have brought these 4 in much sooner, and his opponent would have been even less prepared then. So, but yeah, a short game, but as you can see, there's a lot you can learn from a game. Looking at how well you're keeping your buildings busy, how well you're keeping your units busy. These units up here, he really had these for defense, although he could have been possibly doing something with these, attacking, putting pressure on the front, getting his opponent to think about other things. In some regards, the Zerg had a lot of ground forces here that could have hit much sooner, and he really did need some kind of defending force here up at the front. So I don't think it's a big deal that his units weren't out and about causing trouble. But then again, he could have sent a couple of Marines to every starting location just to look and see and scout. Not only be a couple of Marines to send out, and he would have gained a huge advantage in knowing where his opponent was, especially if he comes into this game with this plan. So, yeah, I think that that's pretty much it. Go into the game with a plan, scout, and have a plan for what to do next. So that'll be it for today's StarClass, and I'll talk to you guys next time.